if you're gay in Iran, they hang you from a crane
No.
until you die.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of Better Business, Better Life. Today I am joined by another amazing Canadian man, Nicky Billou, who is not only a best-selling author of 8 books, he is also affectionately known as the Millionaire Maker, having transformed 11 people's lives into millionaires. And he's got one of the top 10 iTunes business podcasts as well. So can't wait to hear what Nicky has to share with us. Welcome, Nicky.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Oh, same here. I can't wait. We had a little bit of a chat before we came on the podcast, obviously, and I was just learning how you're actually a Christian from Iran who kind of escaped the tyranny that goes on in Iran and moved to Canada, and the things you've been able to achieve since. So it's phenomenal. Tell me a little bit about your story, because I've just heard it, but our listeners would love to hear, who is Nicky? Where does he come from? And what are the things that you've done that you're most proud of?
Absolutely. So thanks for asking that question. So as you said, I'm an immigrant from the Middle East. I'm a Christian from Iran. And when I was a boy in the late 70s, I know I'm dating myself by saying that, my late father, he was a very brilliant man. And the Iranian Revolution happened, and it was an Islamic revolution. So it was really a theocratic based government that came into power. And my late father could see the writing on the wall. He said, this is not going to be a great place to raise my family. We need to hightail it out of here. And he was so far-seeing. He got us out of Iran, and eventually we moved to Canada. And I thank God every day that he did that, because, we get to live in freedom. We get to choose what kind of life we want to live. We get to disagree with the powers that be that are in charge. Although in the last couple of years, they haven't been so good about the disagreements. I think it's very fashionable these days in the West, for among certain circles, to just say, oh my God, the West is so oppressive, so racist, so sexist. And I'm like, really? Want to come to Iran? Want to come to the Middle East? I think I'll show you what real oppression looks like, what real racism and what real sexism looks like. Just to give you a sense of an idea, the Baha'is in Iran are actually killed for being Baha'i, killed. Wow. They are a peaceful religious sect, offshoot of Islam. Peaceful people. Being a Baha'i is a death sentence, just so you understand. Yeah. So secondly, if you're gay in Iran, they hang you from a crane until you die. They hang you from a crane until you die. And it's not like in the Western movies where, your neck snaps. You are hanging there in agony for minutes.
Whoa.
Suffocating. Yeah. And, if you're a woman in Iran, well, you have to cover yourself up. If you don't, you're in big trouble. So, and Iran's not the only place that's like this, obviously, and compared to a lot of other countries, it's quite free. But I just want to give an idea to folks. We live in freedom. We are so blessed. We are so lucky. And these idiots that say, oh my God, no, this is oppressive. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. And I think everybody needs to appreciate our freedoms. Yeah. Everybody needs to really give thanks to the men and women who fought, bled, and died to give us those freedoms. And because of those freedoms, like I get to be an entrepreneur, you get to be an entrepreneur. We get to live the kind of life that we do. And I think it's important that we share this kind of message with people that listen to this, so that, it jolts them awake a little bit and they understand what they need to do. Yeah. Yeah. And secondly, my father, he was the greatest man that I've ever known. He was an entrepreneur. And this is the kind of man he was. If you needed a job and he had a job for you in his company, he'd give you that job. Yeah. If he didn't, he would go out of his way to help you find a job. Like, he would make calls on your behalf, meet with people, and get you a job. Just like it was unreal. And if you were trying to start a business, he would help set you up in business. If you worked for him and you couldn't afford to buy a new car or buy an apartment or buy a home, he would help you buy that car, buy that apartment, buy that home.
What a wonderful man he sounds like.
Going, yeah. Really? Are you serious, Nicky? Who does that? Like houses, cars, apartments. And I go, my father did that, but he wasn't the only one. There was lots of folks in Iran that were that generous. I mean, we come from an incredibly generous people. Like our people are incredibly generous. But my dad did that, number one, because he was a Christian and he felt that he'd been blessed by God and he wanted to share his blessings as he was instructed to by his Lord and Savior. But secondly, he did it because he could. He had the financial means to help people. So he helped people. I wanted to be like Dad when I was a kid. I'm like, Dad's the best. So I became an entrepreneur. I'm all about helping people. Like today, we did an event free of charge with no upsell to people to help them finish the year and sprint to the finish. We called it Dare to Win Sprint to the Finish. And we gave them a half a day of our time, and that's what we do. But when I became an entrepreneur, one of the things I noticed was there's a lot of good people that are entrepreneurs that are frightened to death out of business development and sales. They don't want to come across as pushy. They don't want to come across as salesy. They don't want to reek of commission breath. Okay. So what I know, right? What they want to do is they're kind of hopeful that people will just, they just want to be the coach. They want to be the consultant. They don't want to do the sales part. Yeah. Problem is that, that's worth about $30 an hour. Someone will hire you to be a coach. You've got to get good at business development. You have to, but we help them reframe that from selling to serving. Nobody wants to be sold, Debra, but everybody wants to be served by a caring human being, by an advocate. I can tell you're a very kind person, right? And kind people, sometimes they hold back. And when they hold back, they don't make the money they should. And when we show them how to serve, when we show them how to come across and market in an authentic way, not like, some of these cheesy charlatan marketers that lie their way to make money, that someone who speaks from the heart, man, those people, their businesses start to soar. It just becomes absolutely incredible. And like you said, I've helped about 11 people become millionaires. I've helped about another 70 odd people, add anywhere from 100,000 to, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 a year to their income. And we did that by really helping them see that their kindness wasn't a liability, but an asset. Yeah. Because your greatest asset is how much you care about people. And we help good people really see that and live from that and act from that. Because if you can show somebody when you're working with them that you care about them, that you got their back, that you're going to be there for them, you're not going to let them falter. Man, that is such an awesome thing in business. Your methods could suck, right? But they could totally suck. But people are going to go, oh my God, this person cares so much. They're going to care their way into making sure I win. You know what I mean? And that is more important than anything, in my opinion. And then, our methods, thankfully, don't suck. We show people how to really nail their message and really stand out, because if you've got a mayonnaise message in this day and age, it's not going to work. You need a dialed in message that's really going to help people. How do you get a dialed in message? Well, that's a fantastic question. The first thing is you cannot be talking about yourself. And so many people today talk about themselves. Well, I've got this fantastic methodology and it's got this great acronym to it. And these are the 6 steps in which we help you in. Really? Nobody cares. Yep. Nobody cares about your fantastic methodology with the incredible acronym. You know what they care about? They care about themselves. Yeah. They care about the problem they're facing. And if you want to help somebody, if you want to have a good message, the best way is to ask them, what are the key problems they have? Sit down and ask your clients, what are the key problems you have? And ask them enough questions until you understand their most acute problem. Because what is business? Business is a way to solve acute problems for people. Business is a people game. It's not a numbers game. It's not about, dollars and cents. I mean, it is at one level, but it's about people. You solve problems for people, right? And if you come from business is a people game, not a numbers game, and you ask people, so let's just say as an example, I'm talking to you and you're making $300,000 a year and you've been stuck there for 2 years and you want to make $1 million. Let's just say that's for purposes of this. That was the deal. And I'll ask you, well, what's it like to have been stuck at the same level? And you might say, oh my God, well, I'm frustrated. I'm starting to lose a little bit of faith. Can it happen for me? Can I win? What's that doing to your relationships? Well, me and my sweetheart, we're fighting sometimes and I'm getting short with him and he's getting short with me. And I'm just worried about that. And, I'm not sleeping. I'm stressing out. I'm breaking out in hives, all that kind of thing. So we go deep into what the pain points are, to the point where the entire conversation is about how horrible it is that you're stuck. And then I go, well, where do you want to go? Well, I want to make $1 million a year and I want to work 10 hours a week less. Okay, well, what would that make possible for you? Well, I'd be able to buy my dream home finally. We'd be able to go on that second honeymoon we've always been wanting to go to. I'd get to, there's this charity I'm really, really passionate about helping. And I give them a little bit of money, but I really want to give them the kind of money that would absolutely change the trajectory of what they can do. I want to just give them a big chunk of money. Yeah, that's fantastic. The first part's the hell, the second part's the heaven.
Yeah.
And I learned this from one of my mentors, hell and heaven. And then there's the bridge from hell to heaven, and the bridge is what you do. So you want to talk about the hell and you want to talk about the heaven for 95, 96% of the conversation, and just 4 or 5% you'll talk about how you do it. Most people do it don't do it that way. They go straight right into what they do.
Here's what I do. Let me tell you all about how wonderful I am.
Why aren't you buying already? Why aren't you buying already? All right, y'all, it's Nicky Billou, what I do, how I do it.
Yep. No, I completely understand it. I've certainly seen it from my point of view when people have come to sell to me. It's really frustrating when people come in and all they want to do is tell you all about themselves. It's like, how about you take some time to get to know me as a human, start to understand what's really going on for me. So tell me a little bit about, what you when we talked in the beginning, you said, you help inspire people to get out of pain. What do you do? How do you do that? I mean, obviously you're talking about the heaven and the hell, and you're helping them to bridge that gap. What are the things that you actually do to work with them in that bridge? What is it that helps them get from hell to heaven?
I think the most important thing I got to do is I got to show them that I care, that I want them to succeed and I want them to win. Mm-hmm. And I do that by asking really good questions, because when they're understanding the consequences, Debra, of staying in hell, they don't want to stay in hell anymore. So that's the most important thing, is to get them to a point where they decide, I'm done with this. There's a lot of folks who don't understand how important that is to the process, right? Because you want a person to be in a space where their commitment to winning is total, right? So they have to make a decision. I call these are the 4 characteristics of a winner. Number 1 is they're decisive, right? They kill off any alternative to victory. So in your case, you'd go, Nicky, I'm going to make $1 million. That's it. There is no staying stuck here. The decision is made. There's no walking it back. It's like, the Greeks burning the ships when they landed in Troy. You know what I mean? They burned the freaking ships. It was victory or death, right? And death wasn't really a great option. So victory will, look better. And that's, victory is the option. The decisiveness is you're going to go victory. And then you got to be committed to doing what you got to do. There's not, I'm going to try this for a while, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to quit. There's no, I'm committed. I'm going to make it happen. My commitment is to success and victory. And then you got to obviously be coachable. You got to be willing to take the coaching that we deliver to you. And then finally, you've got to be resourceful, because you've got to come up with money to invest in yourself. The most important investment you can make is in yourself. Robin Sharma, who when I was a fitness trainer was one of my clients, the author of the legendary book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, sold 15 million copies around the world. He's from Toronto. He lives in the same city as me, and I've become friends with him, and he used to be my client. And he said to me once, Nicky, if you ever want to double your income in any given year, triple your investment in personal and professional development. Let me repeat that. If you ever want to double your income in any given year, triple your investment in personal and professional development. Because when you do that, you are strengthening your most important asset. If you're afraid of selling, you need to invest in programs that'll shift your mindset and show you how to sell, like what we do for people. Like if you are bad at marketing, then you got to invest in yourself to at least learn enough about marketing so that you can market or manage someone that you hire to market for you. So you got to invest in yourself. And these people go, no, that's too much money. I mean, let's look at Jeff Bezos. Do you know when Jeff Bezos started Amazon, he didn't put his own money in there. He borrowed money. He found a bunch of people that gave him $50,000 each. And by the way, that $50,000 investment they each put in is worth $750 million today.
Not a bad investment. Yeah.
Pretty great, right? But that's what he did. Elon Musk, Buddy was like broke when he started PayPal. He borrowed money, but he had the confidence and the conviction that he could win. And if you want to win, you've got to find a way to get resourceful and come up with the money. There's no other way. There's no other way. So this is what we teach people to do. You know, you got to have these 4 qualities, these 4 characteristics. We start with those, you're going to win.
Fantastic. And so we're talking very much about sort of coaches, consultants, individuals. The same principles must apply with business owners as well, right? Because you just mentioned, So give me a couple of examples of where a business owner might be feeling stuck, because they're not necessarily out there doing the sales themselves, but they're having to lead the team.
Not.
And
So I'll give you an example. About a year and a half ago, January 2021, I had a client who was a restaurant owner. At the time, he had 2 restaurants, okay? And in Ontario, where we live, restaurants were locked down, and he was an in-dining experience restaurant. His revenue had just
plummeted. Yeah.
You know, like it had gone down like you wouldn't believe. And he's coming in, he's going, what am I going to do? My God, how am I going to survive? You know, he was part of a peer group that I ran. What we told him, that peer group is, buddy, no, you're thinking of this all wrong, right? You survived, right? Yeah. How many restaurants have gone out of business? And he told us like hundreds, thousands even. And I said, well, buddy, you've got to go and you got to change your attitude. You got to go, which bankrupt restaurants can I buy really cheap? And it shifted his whole mindset. He ended up starting 4 more of his own restaurants, and he bought 6 restaurants, right? 6 other restaurants cheap. Yeah. His income went from kind of negative to he had 11.5 million in additional revenue by the end of the year, and he had 4 million in additional profit just from shifting his mindset. And he had that because he had a coach show him how to shift his mindset. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, completely.
I mean, that's super powerfully. Yeah, and then there's another story I'll tell you of this young fellow who came to us. He was a personal trainer. Okay, personal trainers don't make a ton of money, as you know, right? He made really, really poor amounts of money. He made $1,500 a month. In Toronto, that's not enough for rent and food. It's one or the other. So he had to borrow money from his mom and dad. He was a grown-ass man borrowing money from mom and dad. He was 25 at the time. He came to see me, and you know, he's like, what do I do? How do I do it? I go, okay, well, who do you work with? Well, anybody. That's your first problem. You need to narrow your niche. You need to differentiate. I was like, okay. I work with doctors. Why? Well, they have money. Like, you know, not a good reason. No, I'm gonna work with doctors. Well, doctors didn't really see a reason to work with them, so they didn't. Okay, I'll narrow some more. I'm gonna work with cardiologists. That's a narrower niche. Cardiologists. I'm working with. Well, again, he did it because they have even more money than regular doctors, and they didn't buy anything.
Yep.
But then he met a man who had been a Paralympian athlete. He had a missing limb. He'd lost a leg in childhood, and he just was called to help this man work out and train, and he loved it. And you know, this man was really grateful because not a lot of people wanted to work with, you know, someone with a missing limb. And he just said, wow, there's so many people with missing limbs. I bet you nobody's working out with them. I'd love to train with them. I want to help them. And anyways, long story short was, in 6 weeks, he signed up 400 clients. 400 clients. Yeah. He could no longer do one-on-one. He had to do group programs for people. And you might go, well, why did he win? Well, nobody was going after these folks. It was a blue ocean, you know, to quote the concepts from the magisterial book,
Blue Ocean
Strategy. Yeah. So blue ocean, he went into a blue ocean and he got a lot of clients. And his message was, I'm gonna get you fit. We're gonna work out. You know, the fact that you're missing a limb doesn't mean that you can't work out, get strong and fit. Now, I am not someone who has, you know, experience with these folks. You know, I've experienced being able-bodied, but I just put myself in their shoes, metaphorically speaking.
Mhm.
And they're probably not thrilled to have a missing limb or more than one missing limb. And they may have some ideas in their head like, this is terrible. I'm never going to live a normal life. And I'm not as good as an able-bodied person. I'm not as complete as an able-bodied person. And his message was, bullshit. You are just as good as an able-bodied person. And I'm going to treat you like you're an able-bodied person. And like anybody else. I'm going to treat you like anybody else. And I'm telling you, that message must have just stuck.
Mhm.
And that's why he signed 400 clients in no time at all. That's the power of having a really dialed in message, one that isn't a Mayo message, but one that's aimed at a particular group of people you care about deeply, but who needs help. And their acute problem was huge, and he was able to turn it into a wonderful amount of business. And he went from 1,500 a month to 150,000 a month pretty quickly.
Yeah, fantastic. It reminds me of Jim Collins in his book Good to Great talks about the fact that you're never going to die through lack of opportunity. You're more likely to die through indigestion in terms of the amount of opportunities out there. So the clearer you can get about your niche and what it is that you do, the better it is for all involved. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree.
So it all comes back to mindset, though, doesn't it? I mean, that's really what we're talking about here. And that's what Robin Sharma obviously is famous for as well. And it really comes down to how you view things. I think that the example you gave of the restaurant is actually really, really good right now, because there's talk of global recession. I personally believe you can talk yourself into it or out of it, but there's definitely talk of a global recession going on, and people will be worried about it. And so they're going to go into it with fear, with what does it mean for me? And actually, it should be seen as an opportunity. It's a chance to actually review what you're doing, see, like you said with the restaurants, do I go out and buy more rather than shrink back? Is that how you see it?
1,000%.
Yeah.
Right. These tough times, give you an opportunity to serve more people. So as a restaurant owner, what's the pain of people? Well, they're hungry. But the bigger pain is they haven't been out with people. They haven't gotten to feel like a normal human being. So if you're a restaurant owner, your messaging shouldn't just be, hey, our food's great, come eat our food. It should be, isn't it about time that you got out again and you got to enjoy life? And I'll tell you, that's a more powerful message.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Way more powerful message. And that's the sort of thing that these folks right now are experiencing. I mean, restaurants right now in Ontario, they can't keep up with the demand. They can't keep up with the demand. It's a beautiful thing because of the messaging. Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually in Sydney a couple of weeks ago, and I mean, walking around Sydney, around the Opera House and whatnot, when we got to see a show at the Opera House, there was just every single restaurant, bar, cafe was absolutely booming. And I think you're right. I mean, as a human nation, particularly in New Zealand, it sounds like Canada is very similar. We've had some serious lockdowns, like that go for months and months where everything is closed. And so, just getting back together in person with other human beings is what we want and need right now. Yeah. Okay. 100%. So tips for people going into a recession, if you like, what would you suggest people do to help them get through it and make sure they have got the right mindset?
Fantastic question. So, there are a few things I think that are really important for anybody looking at today to think through. One is you need to believe that you can win. You need to believe that you can win. And, one of my mentors did a talk about this subject. He said there was a study done with a bunch of rats, and they put some rats in water. And these rats, they wanted to see how long they'd last. The rat that lasted the longest before they were, they gave up and were going to drown, lasted for 10 minutes. Now, none of the rats drowned. They pulled them out and, fed them and let them rest. And then they put them back in the water. And then those rats were able to last for 2 hours plus in the water because they got belief that they could do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So your belief in your victory is super important. And if you quit on your dream, if you quit on your belief in you and your dream, that's the only time you can actually lose. If you don't quit on your dream, if you don't quit on yourself, you will win. And I'm telling you, this is the number one thing you got to do right now. Believe you can win. Then secondly, get clear on what actually is going on. Like, in the United States Special Forces, right? They throw people over the drop zone for a mission. 30-40% of the time, the people are not on the drop zone. They got to get situated, figure out where they are. So look at where your business is actually at, right? Be clear. Don't put your head in the sand like an ostrich. Look at where you're at. Believe you can win. Yep. And then you have got to get help. You've got to get people coaching, mentoring, peer grouping that's going to help you get through. You need coaches who care, mentors who have a track record of delivering results. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And peer groups have a track record. If you do those three things, you will succeed no matter what happens out there, no matter inflation, no matter what else.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard you talk a lot about your mentors, right? So obviously you're walking the talk. You've got your coaches, you've got your mentors.
Yeah. And if you're in business and you don't get clear about the reality of the situation you find yourself in, right? If you're just kind of like head in the sand in it, and you don't really work on your belief and make sure that your belief in victory is there, and you don't have good mentors helping you out, you're screwed. But if you do have those three things covered, success is 98.75% guaranteed.
That was a bit of hard work, right? But it's all good. So tell me a bit about your books. 8 books. I mean, I'm just blown away by that. 8 published books, as you told me, you've written a whole lot more, but there's 8 sort of published ones there. What are the books about? And just tell us a little bit about those. Yeah. So this is my latest book. I wrote this with a client of mine. It's called How to Create $1 Million a Year Income. He's a insurance person, the number one in his industry in Canada, and he has $1 million a year income. So we teamed up. This is chock full of good tips and advice on how to do that. I wrote a children's book for my kids when they were very young, teaching them about free enterprise, capitalism, Kathy Capitalist and Johnny Jobmaker, right? That was a good book. I also wrote, my most famous book was my first business book. It's called Finish Line Thinking, How to Think and Win Like a Champion. Sold, tens of thousands of copies. I wrote, and I've got 2 editions of that. I wrote a book called The Power of Connecting, How to Activate Profitable Relationships by Serving Your Network. And I wrote a book called The Thought Leader's Journey, and that's actually the one that I'm offering to your folks as a Kindle version of it as a free download. That is basically soup to nuts, written for someone who is in a job and wants to get out of that job and become an entrepreneur in the service industry, like a coach, consultant, etc. So it just talks about what you got to do. That's the Thought Leader's Journey. Is that what you said it was? Thought
Leader's Journey.
And we're going to put a link to that, aren't we, in the bottom of the podcast? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And then I wrote a political book as well.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's what a lot of stuff that we've got there. So that's really good. So I'll put the link to the Thought Leader's Journey at the free ebook in the thing down there. Loving the capitalists. What's it? Johnny Jobmaker and something capitalist.
Kathy Capitalist.
Yeah, beautiful. I love it. Hey, look. We could probably talk for hours because I think you and I have got very, very similar approaches on life. I'm a big fan of Robin Sharma. I'm a big fan of, I do believe that you create your own reality. It's not like you just write something down and it happens, but you have to actually have that belief that you can do it. And then you're putting yourself in the, when you know where you're headed, you can then subconsciously, you're always looking for how you actually get there, and knowing that you can do it is really important. So I think we could talk for hours and hours about this, but I suppose I want to just make sure that we get the real gold out of this. So in terms of the 3 things that the people can take away, you've already mentioned a whole bunch of them, but if we had to just summarize 3 things that people could do, what would they be?
What a fantastic question. So I think the first thing you got to do is you got to take care of your health. It's so important to your life success for the vessel with which you go through life to be in tip-top shape. So you've got to like make it a priority to exercise, to, eat right, to learn about nutrition, to learn about movement, and really take care of all that. And you got to do things to like take care of yourself mentally too. So feed your brain with positive inputs like this podcast and meditation and things like that, because there's so much negativity out there in the world. So much.
Stop watching the news. I stopped watching the news 10 years ago. It was the best thing I ever did.
Yeah, there you go. Good for you. So there's that. Number one, right? The second thing that I think is super, super important for you to do is show how much you care about people and be around people that are like you in that regard. Like, your associations are so important. You know what I mean? And if you're around people that are negative or don't care, that's not going to feel good. So, let those people go. They can go with love, but they must go. So send them off, right? And the last thing I'm going to say is read books. Read books. Readers are leaders. Leaders are readers. That's the facts. And there's so many people that are so proud today. Oh, I haven't read a book in 15 years. You're proud of that fact? Really? You're proud that you haven't read a book in 15 years.
Yep.
That's insanity.
Yeah.
A paperback book. I'm not talking about something that's, on a phone or you're listening to. I'm talking about holding paper is soothing.
Yeah.
You read this book at night versus read it on your phone. This will amp you up and you can't sleep. This will help you calm down and sleep. There's something very satisfying about holding paper in your hand and reading it. So those are my 3 tips.
Love it. I just said there's also something about, probably people who love books might really hate this, but be able to actually write things in a book as well as you're reading. You can't do that on an electronic device, and it's easy to switch between chapters and go, oh, what was that again in that chapter? I have a Kindle for when I'm traveling because it makes it easier than taking all the books. But I have to say, I've got a library. I'm pretty much like I'm looking at yours behind you. There's books everywhere in our life, and it's just fabulous. It's a great way to wind down at the end of the day.
I'm proud to say that I read well over 100 books a year, paper books a year.
Yep.
I've read over 4,000 books in my lifetime. I started keeping track of my reading back in 2011, and then I found an app in 2016 called Goodreads.com, which allows you to track the books you read. You put down the name of the book, you can write a review, you can, rate the book, and there's a reading challenge. And every year I say I'm going to read this many books. And last year was my best year since I started tracking. Although I know when I was younger, there were years I read more books than that. But I read 159 books last year.
Oh my goodness. That's phenomenal. Books. Yeah.
Yeah. This year I don't want to read quite that many, but I'm keen to do 110, 120. And I'm at about 76 right now at this point in September. And I'm
the scorecard's looking good.
This week, I'll probably finish 2 or 3 more just this weekend that I'm kind of reading simultaneously. So I'll be at 80 by next week at this time, I think.
You're definitely going to get that. I love it. I must admit, you are reminding me that I do love to read, but I have had a few things going on and I've kind of put that to the side. It's time to get those books back out again and start getting back into them in the evening. Thank you for the reminder. Yeah.
Of course. May I share one last story?
Please, yes.
So a little over 4 years ago, kind of 4.5 years ago, there was a woman that came into my professional life. I work with my better half, Theresa and I. So this woman was the country director for one of the world's oldest and largest personal development organizations. This organization had been around since the late 60s, and they had multiple countries in which they operated. And she led Canada and had for quite some time. Mm-hmm. She brought on a man to help her grow things. And well, it turned out that they didn't really see things eye to eye, and she ended up leaving, which is unfortunate.
Right.
So she floundered for about 18 months, not really sure of what direction to take. And then she came to us and she signed up, and we started working with her. She loved what we did, and she very quickly said, "Yeah, I'm all in."
Mhm.
And in her first month, she did quite well as a new kind of confidant / executive coach. She did $10,000 in profit. And in her second month, she did 12,000. In her third month, she did 18,000. In her fourth month, she did $62,200 in profit. It's a wonderful amount of money. And I don't know if you follow the work of Matt Church, who
Yes.
has Thought Leaders Global.
I did
So
a
Matt
speaking
Church calls
program.
that
I did speakership. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Matt's a
So
good friend of mine.
oh, there you go. So Matt calls that a black belt month, like $60,000 a month. It's a black belt month. So anyways, we were all so proud of her. She was, at the time, the fastest person to reach that, the first woman to reach black belt in our world, that kind of a thing. It was great.
Yeah.
So a few weeks later, my son, who was 12 at the time, plays soccer. And he's, he had a tournament in her home city of Ottawa. And that's about 5 hours drive from Toronto, where we live. And so as we were driving, I called her because I knew she had a son, my son's age. I said, hey, it's Nicky. I'm coming to Ottawa with my son for a soccer tournament. And I was wondering if you and your son would like to meet us, and we could maybe have lunch after the tournament on our way out of the city. And she said, that sounds great. So we did that. And it was wonderful. The kids got along. A few weeks later, we had one of our branded thought leader immersion workshops. And she was there, and then there was a bunch of new people, and she was part of an annual program we still have. And the time came for the enrollment opportunity into our program.
Yep.
And during the enrollment opportunity, the way I do it is I ask our members to come up and share their stories with people. It's very, very powerful when they do it versus I tell people, oh, we're great, right? When people say you're great, it's much better. So I asked if anybody wanted to come and share, and she leapt up on stage and said, me, before anyone could put their hands up. And I said, okay, she just hit black belt. This is great, man. I mean, as soon as she got on stage, she started to cry. And like any red-blooded man, when I'm confronted with a crying female, I proceeded to panic. What did I do wrong? Why is she crying? But my exterior was placid and calm. Yep. And between tears and sobs, she said, Nicky, you didn't know this, but when you and your little son came to visit me and my little son in my city, my little son asked me, Mommy, who are we going to go meet? And I said, oh, we're going to meet Nicky Billou and his son. And she said, my little son looked at me and said, oh, are we going to get to meet the man who saved our family? Oh. And Debra, you may have gathered that I am not a snowflake, that I'm not a beta male. I am an alpha man. I am from the Middle East. I do not cry in public.
Yeah,
you understand me?
Yep.
I cried in public. Rivers of tears. We both hugged, and between her sobs, she said to me, "You didn't know this, but when we met in Ottawa, and when we met and I started working with you, I should say, I had been in a horrible place. We hadn't paid our mortgage for months. The bank was about to foreclose on our home. Yeah. And my husband and I were fighting over money, and it looked like we might break up, and our family was going to break up. And I went, wow. And she said, coming into your program literally saved our family. And when she told me that, I was blown away and humbled. And I just thought, God didn't put me here in this business to, make a certain amount of money. God put me here in this business to do his bidding and help people that are hurting, that are in pain, that maybe don't feel comfortable sharing their pain fully. And, I'll say this to you, that everyone listening to this, you have customers that are in pain. You, Debra, have customers that are in pain, and you don't even know it. And if you get up in the morning and you ask God to give you the opportunity to alleviate someone's pain through the work that you do, that's incredible. That is what you're here to do, as far as I'm concerned. And here's the pretty incredible part of what happened there. We had 8 new people that were there for the enrollment, 8 prospects for the enrollment opportunity. And our year-long program is a high ticket program, right? Sure. Or, over 3 years, we say people need to invest $100,000 through the work that we do to get them from where they are to $500,000 to $2 million a year. Yeah. And if you don't understand that investing $100,000 to make $500,000 to $2 million a year is a great investment, then
you're not for us. Yeah.
Right. So it's a high ticket program. Yeah. And, normally there's a little bit of back and forth and persuasion that might be required with some people. Not some people sign up right away. Mm-hmm. All 8 people signed up before they were like, hand me the papers. You know what I mean? Yeah. They all signed up. And there were 2 that had told me well before the enrollment opportunity, Nicky, I know you're going to have an upsell. I know. I just want you to know
I'm not
buying your upsell. You got me here. I bought this, but I'm not buying it. Just want you make sure you're not disappointed when I don't buy. Right? You're like, okay, buddy, no problem. You don't have to buy. Yep. He was the first guy to buy. The first guy. And he looked at me and he said, "You son of a bitch." He said, "I wasn't going to buy it."
Yep.
And then he got a little teary-eyed and he just did one of these and he said, "But I guess you're not full of crap." Right? And I really do need some help. So that was, the beauty of coming from helping somebody, caring about somebody, is that you're serving, and sales and pushiness and all that crap becomes unnecessary. Yeah. Counterproductive, quite frankly. And that's my final story.
That is absolutely beautiful. And we're absolutely on the same page. I mean, I think that, if you go out there and you do what your God-given talent is, your unique ability, which is helping people and do it in an authentic way, the rest sort of follows. But I can see that you are very passionate about what you do. I can see how much love you have for the people that you work with. And I'm so honored to have spent some time with you and learned all these things from you as well myself, because every time I said to you before the podcast, every time I do a podcast with a guest, yes, the listeners will get some value out of it, but I get just as much myself. I sit here, take copious notes, and I know that there's things that I can now take away and use. So thank you so much for your time. Just in terms of where people can find you, what's the best way to get hold of you? How can they find out about your courses, your books, you?
So, I'm all over social media and stuff. So if you go on to, LinkedIn, and you put in my name, Nicky Billou, or, Instagram or Facebook. And the only one I'm not on is Twitter. But I am on this alternative to Twitter called Getter.
Okay.
Getter and Parler. But Nicky Billou, you can find me there. It's all good.
Yeah.
But if you're in business, you're a coach, you're a consultant, you're an expert, you're a thought leader, and you're like, hey, I'm thinking I should check in my business, go to my main website for you, which is eCircleacademy.com. Find out a little bit about, who we are, what we do there.
Yep.
There's a bunch of free resources there, like reports to download and all that sort of thing. But there's also this really cool button at the top that goes book a success call. So a success call is all about really having a conversation about what success looks like to you, where you are now, where you want to be, what the gap is, and honestly, why the gap exists, and what the consequences of the gap existing are to you, financially, emotionally, health-wise, relationship-wise. We're going to go deep into all of those, and then we're going to show you what you can do, should you choose to get out of these horrible consequences. And that's really but I recommend people
Provided you're
do this.
decisive, committed, coachable, and resourceful.
And resourceful. Oh, look at you. You're so good. Look at you.
Excellent. I love it. Hey, look, again, I could talk all day, but we haven't got the time, sadly, but I really appreciate you giving me your time, for sharing your amazing knowledge, for helping the listeners. Thank you so, so much. And we will definitely be talking more.
Look forward to it. Thank you so much. God bless you. Thanks for having me on the show.